What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. You looked for it and you found it. This is a place where we dive into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary, capital L, legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with thrice X's. 1, 2, 3. Don't get it twisted. You might also know me as a.k.a. the King Fleas, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. DNA testing is almost conclusive, and it will prove once and for all what we've already all known, that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man. Mr. Wop Babaloo Bop Wop Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Looking good, as is everybody in the house. And that is, of course, made possible by, you want the quaff like Roth, industrial strength, and light. So, just looking through a text message, because this is the No Frills podcast, I got two left feet when it comes to technology. Plus, I don't give you frills because I give you plenty of thrills. And that's looking at me, and, of course, my co-host, the great Keith Hernandez Puppet. And we're coming to you, as always, from the Lush Lavender Lounge of Love, where it all goes down. And today we got ourselves another kick-ass guest. No surprise there. And as I invite him in, hopefully we can get down to brass tacks here on Pod Scum. But let me remind you, still looking for virtuoso-level players for my Glam Sleaze passion project, Love Sword. No, I'm not talking about you down there. Simmer down. Love Sword. So if you're a guitar player, a bass player, or a drummer that's virtuoso level or higher, and you want a view of the backside of the second greatest front man to ever do it, me, Rex Ruger, then reach out to me. Audition, footage, anything. Just show me a noodling, a little anything. Razzle me, dazzle me. And we'll take it from there. See if you got the chops, as they say in the business. Keith, you feeling good about this one? I know he's excited. And of course, let me give him a little bit of credit. He is my consigliere, my doorman, my head of security. Look at him, standing guard at the studio door. He is my confidant, occasional drug liaison. That's usually if we're looking for cocaine. Which, Keith, you might have a little bit of remnants in the mustache there, buddy. So I'm going to take care of that here. Not that any of our guests will mind, but so anywho, looks like we got our guest coming in right now. So enough of all this chit chat. Let's get down to an episode of Pod Scum and fuck shit up here. All right. There he is. Do I got you? How's it going? Carey Howe from, oh, listen, man. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I get nostalgic when I see the faces of the guys in Leatherwolf because, in my opinion, the fucking band that should have been the huge band of the 80s. I'm sorry, man. How did we miss the boat, Carey? What the fuck happened?
I don't know, but I wish I had $1 for every time I heard that. I still would have been all right. You know,
where did it all go wrong, Carey? I mean, Jesus Christ, man. I tell you what, and I told Michael Oliveri this because I've had him on the show, and I told him, and this is going back to the summertime, out by the pool, swimming in the pool at night, got the tunes cranking, and I told my wife, and even she's very versed in her 80s metal, but she said, who are these guys? And I said, because she's like, the songs are fucking great. And I said, I know, the greatest band that a lot of people have never heard of, right?
Correct, right. Yeah, you know, so obviously we've had this question a lot, and, you know, the general consensus is that we're kind of that band that sort of had one foot in each sort of genre. You know, we could fit with, like, let's say, you know, we played with Metallica and Slayer and
right.
You know, all those guys up north in the Bay Area. You know, we played with them all, the thrash bands and whatnot. And, you know, we still played with bands like, you know, the glam sort of LA scene, right? And so we kind of had one foot in one door and one foot out in the other because of the diversity maybe of a lot of our songwriting. But for whatever reason, it kind of didn't work. I can't say it is or isn't because of that, but it's a good guess would say that probably had a lot to do with it, right? So other than that, I don't have an answer. I mean, other than we never really approached the songwriting or the music as like, hey, we have to fit in this box and that's it, and we're gonna do this. I mean, obviously there was definitely some influence in the late 80s from the record label to sort of, wear these sort of costumes and whatnot, which we refer them to, but that was happening to Iron Maiden at the same time. They were in their little, yoga pants outfits and whatnot, right? So, we all sort of felt that from the record labels during that time, and that maybe didn't work for us. We should have stuck to that sort of just leather jacket, white t-shirt and blue jeans and do what we do, kind of thing.
Right. So when I talked to Michael, we obviously discussed his, half jokingly and half serious, his departure. Seems like there was a lot of dissension and a lot of like revolving doors when it came to Leatherwolf, though. Would you say that's accurate? And did a lot of personnel changes have to maybe impede the road to success a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when Dean took over the ownership of the brand, he pretty much decided what went and what didn't go. And he was a little bit emotionally hurt, let's just say, from, us sort of canning him at one point, due to some issues we don't have to mention, but
for
whatever reason, right? And I think he was a little hurt from that. And then when he got in control, he really didn't have we always try to put it back together. Like if I went to play, I was always trying to put back the original guys together, and we could never do it with Dean. There was always someone he had a problem with, or, this, that, or the other, maybe for good reason. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there weren't good reasons, but, we'd always pitch that, look, the most marketable, brandable way for this band is to put the original guys back together and do it. This isn't sort of a where, we're trying to put the super team together, the most technically proficient guitar players that don't necessarily have the right chemistry and whatnot, which is pretty evident because Dean's had this, these guys, a lot of the same ones for 10, 12 years, and there's been no material. Some of the greatest players, but not sort of didn't have the chemistry to get in a room and kind of put things together. You know what I mean?
Right.
They were good. So that was always a hard sell, and that compiled with the fact that Dean was a little bit hurt, and understandably too. I'm not poking at him, but those are good reasons why the original band never got back together and sort of made a good run at it. Because all of the songs that are written in the last two records are from mostly Jeff, and from me, a couple of them when I went in prior to try to put the things together with Dean, and it never panned out. And in both instances, Jeff still remained, and he wrote those songs, and Dean booted Jeff, in both those record projects too. So it's just, it's a lot of things I can't really understand, so I don't try to say what they are. But for whatever reason, we couldn't put the band back together. Even for whatever excuse, Dean was like, hey, I spent all this money. I'm like, dude, I've been blessed to be very lucky in business sense and that. And so I said, hey, Dean, I'll pay you back every dime you ever spent. This last record, before this last record, me and Jeff wrote that whole record. And I had more songs, but I only brought one to the table and said, we can put this together. And Jeff's going to come in. And he didn't want Jeff to come. I said, no, Jeff's coming in. And then I got Jeff in. And then it turned out he wouldn't allow me to buy the rights where we all five could have an equal share in it anymore. He spent what he spent. I gave him all the money, and he refused that. It was more about, he felt like, and then I thought, this isn't about the money to Dean. This is about the control. He doesn't want to be booted like he would, like what happened before,
Right. He's looking for security where he can remain.
Correct. Right.
So to speak.
And if we came in to play, that didn't guarantee that. Right. So I understand that part of it. So it's kind of like, the little train that couldn't, you know what I mean? Because
Right, right.
together, right? Like no matter what happened, even though all those songs are mostly Jeff's because he hung around for both the last projects. I went in with one or two songs saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we can do. Let's put the original guys back together. I was still working on putting Mike together on this last record, but everything fell apart with Dean, you know. And so
right, and of course, in the spirit of seeing the band soldiering on in some form or another, as I said, I have had Michael on here. I've also had the new kid singing for them right now, Keith, really nice young guy or whatever. But I'm seeing a lot of him and the other guys that are currently in that incarnation of Leatherwolf really being whipped on, especially when I look up new footage of them on YouTube, where people are saying, you know, not enough of the original members in there for it to be anything more than just a glorified cover band, which is sad.
Well, you know, I wouldn't say glorified cover band because each one of those guys, I played with a lot of Greg Urban.
Yeah, I agree.
Jeff, Rob, and I were going to do this last project all together. I got photos of us in Dean's garage all together playing, taking photos for new press, right? And we couldn't put it together. So I like all those guys. But as far as, you know, it's just not a Leatherwolf product at that point. Dean, just call it something else. You know what I mean? It's just this, you know what I mean? Because they're all great and they're right. But if you're going to call it something else, don't use Jeff's songs, don't use my songs, and go and write your own. And that was the point that they never had. The writing has never, ever been there for all of the guys that Dean brings in because he, you know, he vets them on their ability and their technique more than their songwriting and their, you know, their chemistry. You know, and I always told Dean, I said, you know, Mick Jagger isn't the greatest singer in the world, but the Rolling Stones without Mick Jagger just doesn't have the right chemistry. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So like, if the Rolling, you know, so if we're going out and looking for the best guy who can, the best technical player in each part, man, maybe we're all done at that point. You know what I mean? There is no chemistry, you know, and, you know, Michael Jordan never could win without a Dennis Rodman. You know, is Dennis Rodman as important as Michael Jordan? Well, as far as Michael Jordan, his trophies say, probably, you know. So these like this sort of je ne sais quoi that you need in this chemistry it hasn't been captured by Dean in the way that he's tried. And that's what we've always tried to just put back together because, you know, Dean is the right drummer for Leatherwolf. Even, you know, he is the part just as much as any one of us, right? So we always wanted to put it together, but it never could, man.
So what do we have right now in terms of the HailMary project? Do we pretty much have like what a lot of other bands are doing, where you have like 2 LA Guns, 2 Great Whites? Is this kind of another version of Leatherwolf, as you said earlier, just with a different name and being packaged and presented differently?
Yes, but in the fact that we're only going to play Leatherwolf songs is not correct. We will play some HailMary songs. Jeff and I did a project called Haunt of Jackals, which is probably one of my favorite records. I mean, there's a song in there that's probably one of my favorite songs we ever wrote. But it opens up that we can play all that stuff too, you know, and we think the proof's in the pudding, and, you know, maybe the name Leatherwolf's the whole curse since the beginning, huh?
Maybe. You're right. Maybe Leatherwolf is the cursed name. I mean, you know, because, you know, as we said at the top of the interview, you know what I mean? You know, the songs were there. Of course, the look was there. Everybody had that look back then. And you know, you guys certainly, you know, one of the rare bands around that time that had the triple axe attack, which you guys were famous for. I mean, not that many people had that much a layered guitar sound. You know, it seems like Falling Short is for you guys is just the ultimate head scratcher. I mean, the songs were great, the look was great, the time, the era was right.
Yeah, I mean, look, we put a lot into it, and I think that showed. You know what I mean? We didn't really just try to capitalize on a scene and writing. So we really were into the songs and writing and you know, all these kind of things. And, you know, speaking of the original triple axe attack, you know, to me that was always Leonard Skinner, and I've been a big Skinner fan. And, you know, and Gary's death right now, you know, obviously is a huge ordeal, you know, to me. But you know, we had always heard harmonies, and then when Iron Maiden came out, we heard harmonies and metal. We're like, oh man, like this is our thing, man. Like we love this. Like we're going to take this, right? And so we really worked on, polyphonic things where you aren't exactly playing the same, but they work together, and then playing together, completely syncopated. So we worked on all those things. It was fun to us, and it came naturally. So, it was exciting time. When you're a kid, you're super driven about things that excite you, and those things excited us. You know what I mean? And they still do to this day.
Well, and in all fairness, when I did have the new singer of Leatherwolf on, Keith, in all fairness, I even, full disclosure to him, I even said, I'm kind of like a purist where, like, I'm one of those kind of guys where, like, I tend to want to follow wherever the voice of the band goes. It's kind of the first thing that really resonates with you. And, I love Michael's voice. I mean, it's just ingrained in you as part of, like, that to sound cliche, but like the soundtrack of your life. I mean, it's just what you remember hearing when you were young. Love Michael, certainly a super talented guy. Obviously, you're working with him in HailMary. So you do have a good relationship with some of the Leatherwolf guys.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, we get along. We can argue like brothers as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a long time, relationship that's always been there. And there's some magic to that part of it. I think that sort of enabled us to do the things that we were doing. So, I have a good relationship with everybody that, really I've ever played with. But
what was COVID like for you? Did you, when everything was hunkered down and shut down, did you find that, I mean, speaking personally of your own experience, did you find that a particularly abundantly fruitful time for you to be creative? Did you get a lot creatively done as far as like writing guitar parts or songs or lyrics?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I actually, we did want the HailMary version of, a couple songs, and we fixed up a few things, and everybody has their own little home studio nowadays, and it's easy to lay pretty good professional tracks. So yeah, we had some fun during COVID, that's for sure. But I live here in Costa Rica, so like we really weren't affected where I live too much.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Look at you living the good life down there in Costa Rica, huh?
Yeah.
Leatherwolf guys, eat your heart out, huh?
Yeah. So, that's kind of, for me, COVID was, was good creative wise. I did some track even for some guys here, and, met a lot of players down here that, we jam around and, talk gear and go to a few shows and whatnot. It's fun, so.
Now, how does that work? Now, how does that work with you being down there in terms of like getting together to play like any live shows, and or will there be live shows for HailMary, going forward?
So a lot of the writing, can be done, similar to how you and I are talking right now. But as far as if we're playing shows, we'll typically fly out to LA, and all of us will be together, and we'll rehearse at a lockout for 2 or 3 weeks. And, we try to get tight as a rat's ass, and then kind of, deliver the goods as we feel is like a deliverable product. We definitely not the kind of guys that will be happy delivering, a bad performance. You know what I mean? That's a bad dream to me. I wake up in the night. If that, I don't want that. So we work, once we're together for, literally 4 or 5 days, it starts clicking, and then it's just tightening it up, and then figuring out the set list and, what's appropriate and whatnot.
Well, obviously, the music business, a vast departure from what it was years ago with all these musical platforms, streaming and digitalized stuff. Do you guys, as a band, speaking about HailMary, do you guys have a direction, or is this something you guys sit down and talk about the format of which you will release music? Obviously, people are taking a lot of different approaches, EPs, flooding the market with singles. Some bands are still putting out LPs and 12, 13 songs, which doesn't seem like the general public is too receptive to that as far as their attention spans go, sometimes sitting down and immersing themselves in the experience of an album. But there are bands still doing it. Do you guys have a set opinion on that?
So, I mean, this is something that we've discussed, obviously for the stuff we had already recorded from 30 years ago, we just try to remaster that and get someone to release it, and Eonion's done that, and they've been good about it. But as far as future stuff, I mean, we'll probably do it just like the re-recording in the video of the last video. We'll just do a couple songs as they come along, and we'll record them. Marco has a really good studio at his house in Montana, and we can do a lot of things. I have a good relationship, with people in LA, that maybe we want to get something mixed or mastered. Cameron Webb, Motorhead fame, and
Yep.
I have a good relationship with him, and he actually lives real close to where Jeff and I stay in LA. So if we need to do something, we can. And it would typically probably be either singles released in videos, or 2 or 3, right? Or go in and do 5 or 6 and just release them one at a time. That seems to be the way nowadays, right?
It does. It really does. Yeah. It seems like people want to keep their name fresh in people's minds. And sometimes when you put an album out and you wait 2, 3, 4 years between albums, you come back and people have oh, how they've forgotten,
For sure, right? It's like
out
of mind,
Yeah, here today, gone tomorrow. So I hate to ask. I mean, we were just talking about Leonard Skinner, the late great Gary Rossington, who just passed away or whatever. Influences for you, and I hate to use that, the old tired influence question, but who are some players that really back in the day really got you excited that you would sit down and say, God, when this guy's playing guitar, I listen.
I'd have to say Steve Gaines was one of those guys. When I first heard him, obviously the guys that sort of changed the way guitars were played always excited me. I thought he was one of them, and then Jimmy Page came along, and then there was obviously I always liked the power and drive of Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi. Even though it was simple, I just really liked that, and then Eddie came along, changed the way guitars were played. Sort of Randy Rhoads sort of appealed to me maybe a little more than Eddie, I would have to say.
Yeah.
But through time, certain guys really appealed to me. I was astounded by Yngwie when he played it. Was rehearsing at Rockstar Records, where a lot of our friends were recording whatnot, and seeing him and Steeler and that, it's like, wow, this is great. So it's been a large amount of influence. Obviously, I used to go see bands like Return to Forever, which is Al Di Meola, Chick Corea, McLaughlin, just guys that really could play. And so I'd like to say my influences had a broad range, not just sort of one style.
Right.
And guys you probably never even heard of, I really like Andy Wood a lot. I like a lot of sort of Nashville player guys that you probably don't hear of, and they're influential to me even to this day.
Sure. So sit and play devil's advocate, and I can't remember because I spoke to him, like I said, back over the summer, and I think I was geeking out a little bit much, and did have a nice long interview with Michael, but I can't remember if I bounced this off of him. We talked about so much stuff, and he indulged me, and it was quite a lengthy interview. But I think a lot of people, and of course, people love nostalgia. I think, of course, of the classic lineup as like the Leatherwolf self-titled, the Street Ready lineup, you, Jeff, Michael. Is it possible that we could see that lineup again, or is this too much stuff in disrepair?
I am one that never will say never. So
right, that's optimistic. That's probably healthy.
And the other thing is, I don't really go around bad mouthing, even if I dislike what Dean's done. He's sort of taken a different approach, but I'll always say, let's come to the table. Let's be reasonable. Let's talk about what's the best marketable ability for this brand. And I think you just hit it on the head. Nostalgic reasons. People want to see the original parts regardless.
Yes.
Right? As long as they can deliver a good product, that should be good enough. Right. So if people are healthy enough and can do it, I'm all for it.
But what do you think, if you had to point to one specific thing? I know we talked about, some dissension amongst the members, some this, but when you guys were really at the height of your powers, and I'm thinking specifically around the self-titled and especially Street Ready, which was a kick-ass album of just nonstop fucking face melters. I mean, just a kick-ass rock album, just all killer, no filler. When you guys were in the pocket and and really doing your thing back then. What was it that you would point to where the wheels really started to fall off?
Well, I mean, literally our whole sort of scene had a few bad things happen. I mean, Island Records, who we were signed to, had us and Anthrax as the only metal. We thought that was going to be a good thing, but we didn't realize that Chris Blackwell, the owner of Island, was busy, more interested in making movies. He was doing the Kiss of the Spider Woman, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
He sold off the portfolio, which he had built, which was worth a lot. He had Madonna and U2 and the whole Bob Marley catalog. So those were the kind of things he held on to, sold to Polydor, and the rest was done, right? And that happened at the same time as literally, Nirvana hit the block. And
I was just gonna ask if you thought the shift to grunge had a big effect on you guys specifically.
Yeah, literally at the same time, because HailMary got together at that time, and even then we were in big talks with Epic. We were doing pre-production with Mark Ferrari, and everything was going well. And even they sort of were like, "Hey, are we going to go between these guys or our new band Pearl Jam we just picked up?" Well for them, right? So,
yeah. Well, you know what though? It's funny that you say that, because I see you guys very much, and you touched on this earlier in the interview, where like you guys didn't fit into like a neat little box. Where like I think you guys a lot like a Guns N' Roses, who kind of came towards the tail end of when bands were over the top glam. I think you guys could have survived in that grunge world though, because I think you guys would have been seen as just a straightforward rock band, because I don't remember you guys as overly glamish.
Right. And so I think that was part of the talks then. We're just going to tone down this whole sizzle from how huge the LA scene went, and we tone you guys down. That we were very different in the way we songwrite. They liked the songwriting. Liked HailMary a lot. They liked the way we were, and we were like ready to sign the deal. And literally, because it took a little bit of time in pre-production, I think that time affected them to sort of, hey, I think this is a bad decision in the metal world. Let's just go in all guns blazing with Pearl Jam, which is a very good decision. So who's to say?
What happened? Did we freeze there for a minute?
We could have. Did I freeze?
There you go. There we go. He just froze up for a minute. That's all right.
In these third world countries, we don't have the best service.
I know. Well, I mean, and again, I think you guys certainly, even when the grunge explosion happened, I think you guys still could have found a pocket amongst all of that stuff. I mean, because there were bands from that era that did manage to survive, i.e. the bands like Metallica and Guns N' Roses and those kind of bands. So like, heavy metal wasn't really flourishing in the 90s, but certain bands were that had something unique about them.
Correct. I agree with you 100%. I agree that we, the direction that we were headed, that we definitely had records and songs that would have made it through that. You know what I mean?
So what is the plan going forward for HailMary? How much more, how much more stuff like will we see? Like you mentioned about, possibly releasing the music in singles. Do we have anything, coming on the forefront?
So we have a ton of stuff. We probably have a good 10 or 12 songs that we keep adding to, the unreleased new stuff or old stuff that we want to go through again, right? And sort of put a new shine on it. But we've been going at this like, hey, let's just make sure this makes sense, right? Let's play a show in LA. We did that. Let's try to book something, a festival in Europe, maybe some shows around it. Well, we got the festival from, some good contacts, but nobody was quite convinced, that was going to happen. We're going to have to go out there and show that we can travel, right? And then once that happens, it's another step, in the ladder. I don't want to look too far and focus on the future so far that I'm just future tripping, that we miss the moment right now, right? So right now we're going to play a few shows. I'm flying out there next week or the week after to rehearse. We got this show in Germany, the Keep It True Festival, which is already sold out. We're playing with Loudness, Jeff Tate, and Acid. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
little gig. So I think that'll go over well. And the venue's good. We've always done well with those guys, and hopefully that turns to some more networking and relationships. Like, hey, they are doing it. All these things that might have been said about Jeff or me or Mike, or that we won't put it together, or there's issues. We're going to put those to bed, and then we'll go from there.
How about Love Canal? Anything with Love Canal?
Love Canal, yeah, of course. Love Canal gets great shows, and I'm like this sort of, I love playing those shows. I feel that the punk rock scene's super cool. It's very, non-pretentious, and there's the people I've met and that sort of side of things have been great friends, and to this day I have a ton of friends from that side of things. And Love Canal will still do shows, and yeah, I'm going to still play whatever I can. But it's not going to be every little bar gig or whatnot. Unless it's something decent, I'm not going to fly out.
How about the Michael Oliveri band, which I praised him on, and I thought the stuff was really, really great. A little bit different spin. Might not be everyone's taste who knows him from the Leatherwolf stuff, though. But what did you think about the stuff that Michael done with his solo band?
Oh, I think it's great. I've always liked, Mike's a brilliant guy, and a left-handed guy that plays right. His brain works a little different, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I like where he goes with things, and he's very talented, very smart, and a great ear, and which are all good things to me, right? So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love some of the flavors I hear in some of his stuff. Really cool.
And now I want to ask, because you've had success in music, because you've had success in business, I've been trying to end a lot of these interviews by putting together a little compilation of the best advice you've ever been given. Now, you've done pretty well in life. It doesn't even got to be business or music related. Just a good piece of advice that's resonated with you that you've taken to heart in your own life.
That's pretty easy. I guess, execution, people who execute is going to beat out, talent and smarts almost every time. If you go out there and just do it, it's going to be better than the smartest guy who just thinks about it, right? Or just talks about it, right? So just go out there and do whatever you want to do, and you feel like you should do. And usually you'll have good results if you have that sort of belief system, and that's probably it for me.
Well said, Carey. You know what? I look at the face, Carey, and I can't help but get nostalgic. I want the goddamn original Leatherwolf back. For fuck's sake, Carey.
Hey, you know what? Me too. Deep down.
I bet you do. Listen, man. I thank you so much for first of all, for spending some time with me today and taking some time out, obviously at your job or whatever. But more importantly, just thank you for great songs and just for being music that's ingrained in not only me but a lot of other people. And I said it before, the soundtrack to people's lives. But just growing up and having fun to those songs and getting into teenage hijinks like you do to those songs. Doing things you're not supposed to be doing to those songs. It's all just ingrained in a lot of people. And I know a lot of people, like I mentioned, the nostalgia thing, would love to see, who the hell did I forget when I said the original lineup? Who am I not thinking of? Paul, yeah. Jeff, Dean, Michael, I wish we could get it all back together again. And I love what you said, never say never, because that is leaving the door open. So,
yeah. Always leave the door open, and I want to say thank you very much for your time and helping put this, in the interest alive. We really appreciate that, obviously. And again, thanks again, brother.
Yeah, hopefully we can stay in touch and we can do it again sometime. Yeah.
All right. Cool, brother.
All right. Thanks so much, Carey. Take it easy, brother. Thank you.
Sure.
Later, brother.
Ciao.
Yep, you too, brother. Thank you.
All right.
There he goes, folks. That's a legend in my mind, anyway. The great Carey Howe. One third of the original Triple Axe Attack of one of my favorite bands from childhood, man. Leatherwolf. I've had Michael Oliveri, the great lead singer. I've had Keith, who's now the current singer. No hard feelings. Obviously, you even hear Carey on there saying, never say never. We want that original lineup of Leatherwolf. I am also in talks to have Dean on here so we can hear Dean's side of the story. Dean Roberts, the drummer for Leatherwolf. Obviously There's been a split. There's been a fraction there. Some of the guys are still doing Leatherwolf. Some guys are doing HailMary, which is a great project, very much in the vein of Leatherwolf. But I mean, go back and listen to those early Leatherwolf albums, and you will say, how the fuck did these guys not end up a Def Leppard, a Bon Jovi, a Motley Crue? I mean, the songs are there. They're well crafted. You got three guys. That's right. Let me reiterate that. Three guys kicking ass on the guitar and just tight rhythm section. Michael Oliveri, great guitar player, one of the best vocalists that I've ever heard, singing that, classic hard rock that we remember as byproducts of the 80s. So, you heard the man right there say never, and very nice of him to join us from work from Costa Rica. And internet connection, a little choppy at times, man, but hope you guys enjoyed that episode, man. I know that I did. Love seeing the Leatherwolf guys, man. Big part of my childhood, man. Hope you enjoyed that episode out there. And remember, guys, take it easy and keep it sleazy.